want you to look at the document. You can find it online. These are the National Sexuality Education Standards. They were published in September of 2012, right when Common Core was being implemented. This is a federal program. The fact that it's national means that, right? The fact that they're standards, educational standards, means how are they going, what's the only way they're going to be able to assess them? Tests. When do they start teaching your kids sex? Look at what's the subtitle tell you? Okay, do you teach your 5-year-olds about sex? Do you teach your kindergartners about homosexuality? Because they're doing it now. They are doing it. These are the national sexuality standards. Kindergarten. Tell me what the subtitle means. When they call it core content, what do you think that means? What core? Common. Well, now see, that's where they'll yell at me. I don't see the word common there. Okay, open this document to the 6th page and you'll see this. When the sexuality standards were being put together, they consulted with other things. Look at the last thing on that list. Common, core, English, and math. Explain to me why a sexuality curriculum, explain to me why, it is consulting English and math. And why is it consulting only Common Core English and Common Core Math? In September of 2012, there only was Common Core English and Common Core Math. Why aren't they consulting non-Common Core Science? Why those two, if this has nothing to do with Common Core? And what does sex have to do with English class? Oh wait, we answered that, didn't we? Remember the question we left hanging that Sandy asked? Why is there so much sex in your English textbooks? Why are there so many books in the English curriculum that are graphically and sexually inappropriate? Why are so many of the math assignments couched in story problems that are shockingly suggestive? Why? Well, now I think you have an answer. Do you understand that the National Sexuality Standards were never meant to be rolled out like a separate curriculum? State of Texas, well, we'll take the English and the math, but we're not going to take the sex standards. Because you know what? If they rolled out these sexuality standards like they rolled out the other subjects, nobody would take them. These standards were constructed, and it's telling you what they did. These standards were constructed to be fed into every aspect of the Common Core curriculum. What the plan here is to make, because you know, we don't put 5-year-olds in a biology class. We don't have biology for 5-year-olds to teach them sex. We don't put 6-year-olds into sex education classes. The only way we're going to get your kids to meet these standards is if we add to every single subject Common Core teaches, we add sexuality component. Because you can't just, if these are standards that your kids are going to have to be tested on, you can't just do it 5 minutes once a week. And that's the plan of Common Core. Do you know there are already plans underway to make art, music, and gym Common Core compliant? Gym class is going to have to conform to Common Core. Because this is about control. Let me show you. What they do with your kids is they break your kids up into 3-year cycles. 5, 6, and 7-year-olds, test. 8, 9, and 10-year-olds, test. 11, 12, and 13-year-olds, and so on. Let me show you what they want your 5, 6, and 7. Now keep in mind, you don't teach your 5-year-olds about sex. So this raises a question, doesn't it? You don't teach your 5-year-olds about sex for a bunch of reasons. It's inappropriate. They're not old enough to process it. You want them to be children, but they're doing it. So what do? You ignore it, they win it. You decide you're going to start teaching your kids your version of sexuality at age 5, well, they win too because you're sexualizing your children. What do you do? And if it's a national standard, you can't opt out of it. And by the way, even if you wanted to opt out of it, how do you opt out of English class? Do you see what they've done? It's not a lesson or a time block. It's an entire curriculum now. How do you opt your kid out of English? Because English is the problem now. Not national sex, not sex ed. It's English that's the problem. And math that's the problem. And you can bet history and science will be the problem too. You'd have to get out all of those? Here's what they do. And here's the last thing I'll say too. Even if you think the federal government should be teaching kids about sex, even if you think it is the job of the federal government to teach your kids about birth control, I disagree entirely. But even if you believe that, the shocking thing about these standards is that they have nothing to do with birth control. 5, 6, and 7-year-olds, here are the standards for those kids. By the time your daughter's 7, she will identify different kinds of family structures and demonstrate ways to show respect for different types of families. Now look, I want my kids to be respectful, whatever their positions are. But that means your kids, by the time they're 7, are going to have to be exposed to homosexual marriage, to polyamorous marriage, right? Aren't they? And who gets to determine what respect is? Whose definition of respect is it? Why does the federal, this is an opinion question. Why does the federal, and for a 6-year-old, why does the federal, do you understand what's happening here? For kids this young, 5 and 6-year-olds, you can't teach them about sex. All you are doing is imprinting things on their brains. You are indoctrinating them. You are grooming them. If by the time your daughter is 7, she has to demonstrate proper respect for all different kinds of marriage, and it's the school or the state or the federal government that determines what if you come from an Orthodox Jewish family? Or what if you come from a Christian family? Or what if you come from a Quranic Muslim family? And your views of sexuality, your family views, are not the same. Can you disagree with gay marriage and still be respectful? Do you think the federal government lets you do that? And what does a 6-year-old know about this? It's pretty shocking when you think about it. Look at the next one. Describe differences and similarities in how boys and girls may be expected to act. Because you know, in a curriculum where right answers aren't even true in math, then certainly gender's not a real thing. You know what this is? This is gender. This is the idea that there is no such thing as male and female, boy or girl. That is all just a cultural construct. That what you are genetically and biologically has nothing to do with what you are. And even if you believe in that, even if you believe that sex is all just made up, people are the gender they say they are, regardless of biology. Even if you believe that, how in the world do you get a 6-year-old to come to grips with this? Why would you want 6-year-olds dealing with this? Describe differences and similarities in how boys and girls may be expected to act. And look at the next one. You're going to send your 7-year-old to the internet for a sex and gender search. Because your kids are going to have to provide examples of how friends, family, media, society, and culture influence the ways boys and girls think they should act. You think about that. Even if you believe in this brand new entitlement for transgender, transsexual, probing, questioning, they got 1,000 different monikers now. Even if you believe that, why do you impose this on 5-year-olds? And by the way, this is a standard. Your kids have to answer the way they want to answer. This is the government now usurping your right as parents to teach your kids the views of sexuality that come from your beliefs, your religion, your traditions. That is all superseded now by them. And what do you think is going to happen if your view of sexuality, say of homosexuality, what's going to happen if your view contradicts theirs now? Who's going to win that battle? Mom and dad or the school, if it's a national standard? By the time your boy is 10, he's going to have to do the following. By the time they reach 10, they're going to define sexual orientation as the romantic attraction of an individual to someone of the same gender or someone of a different gender. That's how they will define it. Notice how there's no debate. Notice how there's no religious scruple. Notice how there's no multiple ways of seeing things here. I want my kids to respect peoples of all different walks of life. But this is beyond that. You are now compelling them. A 10-year-old who himself has not reached puberty. You are now compelling them. And why? And you see the kind of things they're asking here? This has nothing to do with birth control, and it has nothing to do with sperm and egg and biology. This is 100% sociological indoctrination. What else is it? Even worse than this is how they have to administer the standards. This is taken directly word for word from the document. How are they going to implement this? Well, instruction by qualified sexuality education teachers is essential for student achievement. So everyone's going to have to be qualified to teach sex in English or in math. In other words, if this is all part of Common Core, that means when you qualify to be an English teacher or a math teacher or a history teacher moving forward, you're also going to have to be qualified to teach sexuality. Because that's what comes with this. How about the next one? Students need opportunities to engage in cooperative and active learning strategies. with regards to the standards. How about the next one? Sufficient time must be allocated for students to practice skills relating to sexuality education. How about the next one? Students need multiple opportunities and a variety of assessment strategies to determine their achievement of the sexuality education standards and performance. It comes right from the document. It's already in the schools. How do I know it's already in the schools? Because that's the other answer I hear all the time. Well, that'll never happen in Texas. That'll never happen in Wisconsin. I can guarantee you that'll never happen in North Dakota. It's already here. The next slide is pretty graphic. The next slide is a picture of a poster. This poster, oh gosh, I didn't realize she was a little rough back there. The next slide is, you got it, okay. The next slide is a picture of a poster that hangs at the front of the blackboard in a middle school in Shawnee, Kansas. Now look, Shawnee, Kansas is not hippy-dippy Austin, Texas. It's not crazy Madison, Wisconsin. Shawnee, Kansas is the dead epicenter of the Bible Belt. This poster hung on that wall the entire year last year. It was a 6th grade girl, 10 years old, 11 years old, who took the picture and brought it home to her father. Here's the poster that hangs on that wall even as we speak. The title of the poster is, How Do People Express Their Sexual Feelings? Notice what they've got. Talking. This is so common core English in ecology. Things like proofreading and correctness don't matter. Notice how they've got talking up there twice? How do people express their sexual feelings? Talking. Did you know saying I like you was sexual? Because it's up there. Did you know that hugging and dancing are all sexual? And look what they have them alongside. Do you notice what this is? What does this have to do with biology? What does this have to do with birth control? As a matter of fact, for a public school obsessed with birth control to the point of fetishization, isn't it interesting that they don't bother to point out that some of those behaviors might lead to disease? Or some of those behaviors might lead to pregnancy? No one ever got pregnant with an I like you. Other things, now again, they're fixated on birth control in public schools. And yet here, not a slightest mention of it. You see what this is, right? This is sociology. This is telling your kids, if they object to anything on that list, and who's going to object to saying I like you? If they object to anything on that list, they are rejecting all of it. And if they accept any of those as legitimate, then they must accept them all as equally legitimate. This is the destruction of modesty. This is the undoing of chastity. This is the removal of Judeo-Christian moral ethics. This is a glib, frank, in-your-face reprogramming of the kids from the way you would have programmed them. And it was a 10-year-old who took the picture. What does that have to do with anything? It's a list of some very benign things and some very vulgar ones. And yet that's at the front of the classroom day in and day out. And even more shocking than this is what happened when Dad freaked out. Dad got the picture, Dad marched right up to the school. Here's the response that was received. This is from Hawker Grove Middle School spokeswoman Leanne Neal of Shawnee, Kansas. The poster that you reference is actually part of our middle school health and science materials. What did you see there that had anything to do with health or science? Do you see how science now, just like math, has been subordinated to communal exercises and feel-goodism and social justice? Now you see that science itself, empirical science, has been subordinated to a poster with vulgar words alongside things like I like you. This is part of our math and science curriculum. And so it is part of our district curriculum. Where did it come from? The curriculum is a part of, aligns with the national standards. It's already here. It's in your schools, it's in our schools, it's in schools in Shawnee, Kansas. This junk is already there. Common Core is ugly. But if you kill Common Core tomorrow, and you have to, because what is so problematic about Common Core, if it gets its way, you'll never be able to pull it out again. I would start making lists of what you see in your kids' classrooms. If the textbook is Common Core, take a picture of it, send it to your legislator. Send it to Governor Perry, send it to everybody. If more moms and dads say, hey, it's illegal, because you are in a position where the state could, and look, I promise you, There are a lot of people in your state legislature who know it's there. There are a lot of anti-Common Core Republicans who know it's in their districts. But there is no impetus for them to take it out. They made the statement, they repealed it, the rest of the country applied.